Hi there, I'm Reed, co-founder and CEO at Stytch, and welcome back to the Agent Ready video series. Today we have a very special guest. We have Lizzie Siegel, a developer relations lead at Cloudflare, and we'll be going really deep into MCP servers, in particular how to build a remote MCP server. MCP, of course, being the Model Context Protocol, which has been really critical to a lot of the kind of rise and attraction that we've seen in AI agents over the last few months. And so I'm really excited to have you and chat more through that, Lizzie.
Thanks, Reed. Excited to chat MCP with you.
Awesome. Well, maybe the first thing we'll start at just basic level. Obviously, folks have probably heard the term MCP, but what is MCP? What is an MCP server, and why does that matter relative to AI agents?
Great question. And I've watched so many YouTube videos to better understand this, and I know a lot of developers have as well. MCP is a standard that lets agents have access to tools. It's exciting because these tools are programmable. They're portable. You build the tool once, and then it can work across different LLM providers, MCP clients, hosts like Claude Desktop, Cursor, or Windsurf. So you build once, and then you're not locked into, you don't have vendor lock-in.
Awesome. Well, and one of the things I've found is, to your point, I feel like people have found so many different analogies to try to explain MCP, whether it's USB-C, whether it's, something else that tries to just make it concrete for folks. And I think probably, you coming from the DevRel background, but also for myself, as I've learned about it over the last, few months as well, nothing really replaces seeing a demo, going through kind of the internals of what's possible with this, what it takes for a developer to build this, and then what is that end state. And so maybe talk with the audience in the group a little bit about what we're going to be walking through today in order to exemplify and show what MCP servers do at work. Yes.
So I have a demo ready that will help me book a tennis court in San Francisco. And I like this because, one, it uses Stytch. So not anyone can book this court. Only I can book it for me, and it will log in for me. It will act as me, and it will take action for me using Cloudflare MCP, Cloudflare browser rendering to scrape the web page and log in via our Puppeteer fork. And of course, Stytch to be like, who are you? So if you're not me, use your own MCP server.
That's great. Yeah, no, going from just an AI that might crawl information on the web for you to something that's actually taking actions on your behalf. I think that's one of the things that gets folks really excited about agents and obviously MCP in this use case. So super excited to kind of dive deeper, and maybe we can get started and just kind of walk folks through a demo and understand what's happening under the hood afterwards.
Let's do it. I'm going to open up Claude Desktop, which is my MCP host of choice. And we're going to ask, check tennis court times at Alice Marble for, let's say, Thursday. And this will convert. This is going to take some time. That was not. It will parse out Thursday, and it should know what day it is, so it can click the time clicker, the date clicker, and it's going to scrape and be like, select Alice Marble, and it could work for I've tried Dolores, but Dolores is pretty popular in San Francisco, so there's not many open court times. Mm-hmm. But it can work for DuPont, Alta Plaza, Lafayette, any public San Francisco tennis courts that are bookable on the Grec.us platform. And it used to be Spottery, but I think it changed a few months ago. So that scraping would have to change. Okay. So it says Alice Marble Tennis Court has availability on Thursday, August 7th at 12, 1:30, or 3 o'clock. And we can check that in the browser. 12, 1:30, 3. 90-minute sessions. And what time should we book?
Let's see. Maybe make it a lunchtime, noon reservation. Yeah.
Book noon, please. And it should parse out noon, and it pass that text to the LLM, and it knows that noon means 12 p.m.
And presumably, I noticed when you showed up to the office today, you had tennis rackets in your bag. So presumably you play tennis a lot. This is something that you would have otherwise had to go to the user interface every single time. Mm-hmm. And there's a ton of convenience that you're getting just from this entire ability, that everywhere that you're starting to centralize other work like Claude or ChatGPT, whatever it is, you're able to kind of bypass those steps that you otherwise wouldn't be taking.
Yes. So I could do this in Cursor, Windsurf, Claude, ChatGPT now, and you can automate this process as well programmatically. And now it's asking for authentication. Thank you, Stytch. Going to click that. I think I'm already authenticated because I tested this earlier.
Yes.
Choosing my personal Gmail.
Wow, look at that authentication. So smooth, so seamless.
Very smooth and seamless. And I say authenticated. And then here is, I would like this to be automated. I used to work at Twilio, and it's going to text me a code. And I do not have a Twilio phone number anymore that can respond to text messages. So that is a work in progress. Okay. So I'm going to get this text message to my personal phone number, and then I'll paste it in. So this triggered the booking request SMS tool. So now that it's authenticated, it can finish booking for me.
Okay.
Well, request SMS. And it would request SMS of any human, any user. So if I were to go into the browser and try to book it by hand, I would still get a text message.
And so this is for the SF Parks and Rec. They typically log you in like with email and then make you do an SMS as well to make sure you're a human, or
Yes. Yeah. Sometimes it times out. Looks like there was a timeout, but it will try again. And it checked the authentication status. And I like Claude as an MCP host for this reason. Sometimes I use the Cloudflare LLM playground, but it's not as smart.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, it gives us a moment to think about, if I were, and this is when we're talking about in this series, the idea of making your app agent ready. If I were the Parks and Rec website and I wanted to make this, think about what you're doing today, where you're putting engineering resources within the city of SF into building and maintaining this website. And a lot of consumers are starting to vote with their feet that they'd probably prefer to use something like a Claude or a Cursor or a ChatGPT. And so the ability to start exposing your application so that, Lizzie here can authenticate, show that it is a real citizen of SF, but maybe making it easier for them, like maybe not always requiring them to do the SMS verification because there are other ways to verify you without making you kind of jump through those hoops. Yeah. But really promising ideally in the way that, no longer does the city of SF need to think about building out and maintaining this really robust website. You can start thinking about a lot of the kind of work that gets done for you by the LLM interfaces, and you just have to expose the right routes and tools to them.
Yes. And I wish they actually emailed, because I could use Google Gmail. They have an API to check your inbox and then get that email. I'm going to try that again.
And we're at the vanguard, the cutting edge of MCP, which is why, of course, live demos don't always work exactly the right way.
But glad it's live. I feel like I've seen a few video games, and I'm like, you're trying to hide something.
Yeah. No, this is good for folks to understand that as they're starting to play around, build these things themselves, you're going to find, because of the probabilistic systems or different things you haven't thought about, and latency elements like that, there's going to be some iteration you're going to have to find in order to get to it deterministically acting the way that you want.
And the web scraping was hard for this because some buttons might not load in time, or there's quite a few timeouts. So a lot of retries.
And for the web scraping, you're just using Puppeteer for that?
Yes. Cloudflare has a Puppeteer fork called browser rendering.
Okay.
You can click buttons, fill in text inputs, text boxes.
Oh, excellent. Look at that. Yeah.
And I just got sent this code. I'm going to type it in. If the VPN came on, I would cry because the VPN would restart the process. Typed in the code, and now it triggers the enter SMS code and complete tool that takes in that code that I just typed in and then inputs it in the text box. Booking confirmed Thursday for 12 p.m. under my personal email. And now if we were to check, I'm not going to check my email, but should get an email and it says reservations. Oh, can you block out my address? This always happens.
Yeah, post-production. Yeah.
But I have a court booked for Thursday at noon and a lot of canceled courts because I keep on booking and unbooking.
Oh, wow. Okay, great. Awesome. And out of curiosity, when just to kind of put ourselves back in your shoes when you're starting to think of here's a task that I do all the time. I would love to make this easier on myself. What was your process pre-MCP server? And obviously, MCP servers have their own rough edges that you're building this on top of someone that's not exposed to it as kind of a first-class entity. But curious, you previously would have gone to the site, But does this change how you think about like, schedule, like, having recurringly looking for things in the future, or like what conveniences do you imagine you'll get from this in the future?
I was going to build this in a Cloudflare worker and just like set a cron job. And you can still do that with the Cloudflare MCP as well. But with MCP servers, I think it made me break it down into tools. It was like, what were the steps?
Yep.
And then you kind of think about the steps you take as a person and also the steps that the computer can take as well.
Okay, great.
So it's very like composable, and it's neat to think that those tools are reproducible or reusable across many different MCP hosts and clients now.
Yep. And now that folks have kind of seen this remote MCP server, like use case in action, there's a concrete example. Would love to talk a little bit more about what went into that building it process with Cloudflare. Like what were the different tools that you used in order to create this under the hood? And then, maybe talk through some of those in a bit more detail with the audience.
I think Reed is saying, let's dig into some code. First off, I initially started in the Cloudflare docs here, where I clicked to deploy. And that gave me a GitHub repo that I could clone. And then it gave me some tools to start with, like an addition or like some math tool. And then I added my own tools. And of course, this was authless. This did not have authentication. And then I added auth later. Not saying auth was an afterthought, but click to deploy is like very fun, very easy. And as was Stytch, adding that once I realized I don't want other people booking for me. Scrolling in the docs, and here's how you would add authentication. My MCP server, I have a ringlet.jsonc file. And if you know Cloudflare workers, this is kind of like where you add bindings. And bindings are connections to other Cloudflare products. Many of these were already included when I git cloned the repo that was generated for me. But I did add the AI binding, so I could use Cloudflare Workers AI, open source models hosted on Cloudflare Workers that I can run inference on with a few lines of code. So I could be like, pass the scraped website data to an LLM and like return a message that's more human-like sounding. And then here's the browser binding. So I could use Cloudflare browser rendering to interact with the browser, interact with web pages, and log in and take steps for me. KV namespaces, a key value store so I can save key value data. And index.ts is the heart of the Cloudflare MCP server. Initialized tool is where you guessed it, initialized our tools. In computer science, some things are hard, such as naming things, but not this one. Tool 1, check tennis court availability. This tool does not have authentication because it's like anyone can check what courts are available. Takes in date, court, maybe, and time. These are pretty optional. Then checks the browser, goes to the website, navigates to the specific court. If someone was like Alice Marble, Dolores, handles the date, there's a function that's like gets the current day. Loads selectors, waits for available times to load, makes an availability object that has like the court, the date, available times, requested time, available total slots, and then passes that to a Cloudflare Workers AI call to return natural language. System message is like, you're a helpful tennis court booking assistant. Convert this availability data to a friendly conversational response. And I used Llama 3.1. There are other models to use.
And that's through the AI binding?
Yes. Yeah. And then book and request SMS. This one needed to be authenticated because not just anyone can book and request book a court and request SMS on my account. We have my login information as secrets. And then we connect, log in, and get a lot of these, like fill a lot of the text boxes. Looking for the Stytch part. We have our auth endpoint that connects to the front end. So we get, for that tool, it returns a URL, a Cloudflare page's URL. And that's where you authenticate with Google Auth via Stytch. And then you would return, and it's confirming or denying that you are authenticated.
And for the SMS requirement on the site, I'm just curious, is your guess that that's intended in order to prevent bots booking up the courts?
I think it is, because that is a problem.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's an interesting point here where it is a balance websites and apps need to think about as they're becoming agent ready, which is there's a very reasonable motive for why SF Recs, Parks and Rec, may not want bots historically to be able to, submit claims for courts. Because imagine somebody could write a very simple puppeteer script. They could book every single time, and then they could, show up only to the ones they wanted. Because my guess is they don't charge you when you book. Is that correct?
They don't, but they are going to start charging for some courts.
Okay.
Mainly because Parks and Rec is in debt, I think. But
okay.
I think also because people just book and then don't come.
Yep.
And being in San Francisco, I think quite a few engineers, I know a few, have automated this process.
Yep. Okay. That's interesting. And that makes sense. And I think the motive for why they, move from okay, we don't want bots booking up and taking, similar with when Nike drops a new sneaker, there's a lot of, sneaker bots that will try to buy up all of the limited edition, then resell them. You might have people that try to resell courts, if they really got all booked, or people are just not showing up if they try to book every slot. So I think it makes sense why, historically they'd started with SMS as something that proves a human is in the loop with that phone number verification. I think what's interesting here, and it's interesting that you mentioned that they might have people start paying for courts, is this is clearly still a human on the other side of the interaction where, yes, it's an AI agent taking action, but there is a human in the loop. It's just a different interface, a conversational interface that you're using to make your life easier. It still makes sense though. SF Parks and Rec likely still wants there to be someone with agency, a human with agency behind the AI agent. And so the reason I mention that is just there are going to be different motives and incentives that apps need to think through how they want to solve that. I would say it's, a little clunky for them to still require SMS in that context where you get the SMS and have to, and obviously this was a great demo to show they don't support a remote MCP server, so how do we build it? But it'd be really nice if instead they did something send an email verification that you could click, or to your point, if they start asking you to pay for the court, put $5 deposit down that you get back later if you show up. Those are all ways. There are different ways you can incentivize this to only be good AI agents or agents with a human behind it. And then of course you can think about things like bot protection, bot mitigation, et cetera, to stop some more malicious cases. So I mostly just wanted to flag that in terms of, it was interesting to me because I had not been through the Parks and Rec flow myself, but it makes sense why they've had to land there.
Yeah, that makes sense. And so we check for authorized emails. Is the email that you log in with one of my authorized emails? And here is an authenticate function in the front end. So we have the front end and then the server, which is the MCP server. This front end, this function is the authentication callback page. It handles completing the login flow after OAuth. Then we authenticate the token. Should last 60 minutes. Set some items locally, and then notify the worker, the MCP server, about that new session with the user ID and their email, and if they were verified. Send that session token and Google token to the MCP server. And then the other tools are pretty similar, I guess. I think it helps when you go through the flow yourself, because then, I had to do that, so I knew what buttons to click, what selectors to expect. So I could say, click this, do this.
And that became your kind of guidance for which tools to outline?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Awesome. So now we have a good sense of both the code that went into the remote MCP server itself, how you built out the different tools that you wanted to expose to the AI agent. Where do you think is the most natural next kind of element that folks start to unfurl in their mind when they go deeper into building remote MCP servers?
I think a lot of people have been saying MCP servers are not that big. Why are people so excited? It's just a wrapper for an API. And a lot of MCP servers are wrappers for APIs. But it's exciting that it's a way to give LLMs tools and they can take action for you like this. It can pretend to be you. And in the past, pre-MCP, you would have to program or help set up that connection between Windsurf and a tool, Claude and that tool. And I think now LLMs are going to get a lot smarter because of it. And it's kind of, it's a great time to be a builder because there's so much to build and it's really fun, I think.
That's great. Awesome. Well, I'd love then to hear a little bit more kind of the experience of as you're building this, what are maybe some of the tips and other takes that you'd share with developers to help make this more streamlined, improve their ability to build remote MCP server, maybe some of the interesting lessons that you had. We'd just love to hear a little bit more of kind of how you advise developers on going down this path.
Yes. Using schemas is very important. This MCP server uses Zod, which is a TypeScript library for validating schemas. Your inputs should be set and your outputs should be predictable. So then I think that's more programmable. If you can expect the output, then you can kind of predict or program what to do with it. And of course, you can use LLMs now to like format that. But I think Zod is a great library for that. And it's not just for validating schemas, but it's also for clarity. And that's like, that will give you better LLM output.
Could you expand on that, the clarity piece?
Yes. With schemas, it's kind of like making the output more digestible, I think, for LLMs.
Okay.
And I saw like a tweet, I don't want to say a study, but that the LLM output would be better with schemas.
Our modern version of studies, right? Yeah. Peer-reviewed.
You should avoid tool soup. Like, don't overload the tool or the function. Like, keep it fairly composable. Like, one tool per responsibility.
Okay. What would be an example maybe of tool soup if you had applied tool soup to that example we'd walk through?
Having them all be just like one tool, maybe.
Okay.
Yeah. Like, don't mix like read and write or like logic and UI.
So if you had made the tool like book a court, and then that would have to include looking at the times it's available, actually clicking through and choosing which time. Okay.
Yeah. Like Claude does check when I say book a court, even if I know what time it is and that it's available, Claude will still run the check courts function tool.
Okay.
So Claude's smart enough, but that is a separate tool.
Okay. Great.
Do not blindly use tools. There's something called tool poisoning now, where people, I guess malicious users, can put instructions into the tool description that's like, hack this person, or like leak their SSH key, API keys. So look into that.
And if I am someone that's trying to, follow that guidance of don't blindly use tools, what should I be looking for when I'm deciding whether to use a tool?
Probably where it's coming from.
Okay.
Who built it, maybe, and how many people are using it. If it's kind of reputable.
Okay.
Design tools like you would design endpoints. You should validate inputs and kind of predict the outputs and document edge cases. For example, this MCP server, the tennis booking one, some of the tools might not work if the website is down. So that is something to consider and like write down.
And when you write that down, is that so that it handles that error and returns it back to the user better, or is there another purpose beyond that?
Tells the user. I think it's like better user experience.
Okay, great. And then how should people think about descriptions on tools?
Good question. Here, I think you're not trying to sell this tool. Like, don't make it like flowy, salesy. Don't oversell it. Because this is how the LLM knows what to expect and knows to run it. So I think keep it simple, understandable to the LLM, and be honest. So like don't oversell so that the LLM does not oversell it or like misuse it. Or you want the LLM to know when to call it. So like I think in order for the LLM to know when to call it, you just have to like be blunt, be upfront and clear about what it can do and what it does.
That's really interesting. I'd never heard anyone make that recommendation, and I think it's a helpful one to maybe like highlight, because effectively you're saying, if rather than marketing a product as like this is Wonder Bread, you're giving it the LLM the ingredients of what's involved, so it is very literal and exact about what it could be doing. Okay, that's very helpful analogy for me. Thank you.
Yeah.
And then as you're working on this project, I'd be curious to hear a little bit more about what were other things you had to keep in mind for this specific project? Whether it's your first, MCP server that you're working with or your, 100th, what are the things that developers should keep in mind?
For this project, I had to debug and prod. Like I had to use a real website. I had to click real links. I had to type in my real password and username programmatically into a real text box. So it was like testing the real thing. And I was afraid that the website would start suspecting some things. Earlier this year, I tried automating NBA All-Star voting, and I was able to do it via Cloudflare browser rendering for like 3 days. And then after 3 days, they were like, you're a bot. And I could no longer do that.
Who are you voting for, by the way?
Steph Curry.
Okay. Yeah.
Warriors fan. For this project, it was also hard to keep track of layout shifts and button loads. Some text boxes and buttons did not always load in time, so there were quite a few timeouts. So I had to have some retries, fallbacks, and sometimes the tool doesn't work, and then I'm just like, try again, like it works. You have to keep DOM interaction as minimal as possible, kind of like don't want the website to know what you're doing, or also like don't want to overload or confuse the host or the server, honestly both probably. This is a headless browser, and it's not the same as headless logic. So we can control our headless browser, but we should program the logic. We should not leave the logic to the LLM. So by that I mean, don't code like click the third button from the top. Instead, say like click the submit button. Like be specific, explicit, and to the LLM pass off like, I'm trying to think what to pass off to the LLM. Things that you don't really need to rely on as much. Like not quite an action of like click the button, like you are programmatically saying click this button, but that's not AI, I guess. Something like you can trust, or don't need to trust as much, I guess.
Okay, great. And then what would be next with this project?
Cloudflare Workers has cron triggers, so you can automate the booking of a course, or say like run this tool every day at this time. So when court bookings open, you can say book this court as soon as you can book it, and then you'll beat people out.
Great. And then if folks want to learn more about remote MCP, follow more of the content you put out there, where would you direct them? And if there's anything else you wanted to wrap up with, would love to hear any final takeaways for folks.
Yes. With MCP, I think LLMs can definitely go from text prediction to task completion. And that's exciting to see. You can chain together LLM calls, function calls, and different steps, of course, broken down into tasks. You can find me online at Lizzie Pika, LIZZIEPIKA, and Lizzie, LIZZIE, at cloudflare.com. And I will drop some links in the video description for Cloudflare Playwright MCP and browser rendering and using Stytch to authenticate your MCP servers.
Great.
So I can't wait to see what you build.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Lizzie. Really appreciate you walking through that. I think one of the things we get really excited about is, showing the power of putting something that maybe is, a small everyday task or common, weekly task that you might do into this AI interface. Really allows us to get away from users having to relearn the UI across every single site and application. And so that's one of the things we're really excited at Stytch about in terms of apps becoming agent ready, and Cloudflare providing the tools to allow people to host remote MCP servers, seeing that kind of entire full end flow. Super helpful here. Excited to add this to the Agent Ready series, and we hope you'll join us next time as we dive deeper. Thank you.